All right, Dean, how's it going, man?
Going good, Dan.
Right on, dude. Well, thanks for doing this. Why don't you just quickly start who you are, what you do, where you're from?
Yep. So I'm Dean. I'm a producer and also content creator for artists. I'm in Melbourne, Australia.
Awesome, man. And we've worked together for a while now, over a year, I believe. Um, what what was your business like before you came to me? What were you doing? What were the struggles? Why did you come and get help? What was going on back then?
Cool. So the main thing I was doing prior to Dark Label was beat leasing. I've been doing that for a couple of years, and there was income from that, but it was far from a sustainable thing. So essentially, I heard about yourself, reached out and had a conversation, and things started to make a lot more sense as far as building more of a sustainable business around music.
Yeah, the beat. If anyone seeing this has seen any of my other videos on YouTube, the beat selling thing is probably the hardest model to actually make into a thing. So cool. So you came in basically to switch your model to change models and work more direct to client work, and do that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Also just to understand the other options that are out there.
Right. Cool. Got it. Um, Sweet. And what are things like now? We've had a fun journey trying a lot of things, and I'd love to chat about that. Yeah, I mean, we could do specific wins or just like realizations, general, what's going on in the business now? What do things look like?
So things look a lot different than they did about a year and a half ago now. A big change would have been in the mindset of self-belief in what's possible. Also, there was a big sort of change in realizing the sort of person that you have to become to actually achieve things that are actually quite difficult to achieve. Things are definitely attainable, but often trying to do things just by yourself, um, it can really slow the process down or actually prevent it from happening at all. So figuring out that you need help and realizing the help's there and finding the help that actually is going to move you forward has been a really big change and shift of things. I've been able to bring on clients that bring in more money than beat leasing ever has, which is really helpful. It's always a work in progress though, and you and I both know that.
Yeah, and hopefully you're cool with me getting a little. I like doing these interview things more than like a regular kind of testimonial because it gives us a chance to chat, and hopefully you're cool with me being candid. But because it's a good thing. Um, you were doing the work, man, and it was one of those cases where it just took us a little bit more time to really dial something in, and we could talk about that too with the offers, and really finding out, really digging into what you were good at and making that into a thing. But there was a point there where I thought, we were going to lose you, right? Even though
Me
you were,
too.
yeah, exactly, man. I mean, some cases, and that's why I want to talk about this because it's just the reality. Like some cases, we do the work, the client does the work, and it just takes some time to lock it in. And what happens, unfortunately, sometimes is they don't stay in long enough. They give up, basically. And you were one of those that didn't give up, even though we had some conversations where it just sounded like, you know, didn't sound like a person that wanted to continue with like this model and stuff like that. And then man, it just switched on. Like once we found, and we can talk about this in a second, your content model and the
Yep.
need for that in your local market. Uh, it was crazy, right? Like, I'll let you kind of explain what that is, and then we could talk about it.
Yeah. So I find it can be difficult to, when you hear about the importance of creating your own lane in something, it can be quite difficult when you realize you're doing something that everyone else does and it's completely doable, but finding your own little specific thing where there is a need, that's a really big challenge. And I think that's where I got to a real sticking point with things. And so it was just through the period of about a month of brainstorming different ideas, I came across this content creation, because I'd kind of been doing similar stuff like this without even realizing it, for the beat leasing stuff for myself. And I did a few things for a couple of friends as well, and they sort of really loved what I did for them. And then that's when I thought, I maybe mention this to Dan and see what he thinks about this. And it kind of just snowballed from there. And I found that in my local market, there was a need that no one else was doing to build content for artists. And I already had the skill set to do it and a little bit of practice. I just needed I just needed a bit of validation, firstly, from yourself. Number one, was it a good idea from a business owner's perspective, which I was really, really stoked that you got on board with and continue to help me with. So the growth in that over the last few months has been pretty quick compared to what it would have been by myself trying to figure it out. And it's something I'm super, super pumped for.
Yeah. And it took us a year to get there, right? Like that's the important part of
That's
like
true.
that's how business works. Like now it's like boom, it's dialed in. The literally the growth you've had in the past 90 days has been 10 times the amount in the first, series of months. And that's like, well, yeah, that's business, man. And now that's not everyone's case. I mean, that's the cool thing about these interviews, right? You'll see someone else's interview, Adam or somebody's like, oh, crushing it in a week. Great. That's fine. They're going to have other problems later we have to deal with, but everyone has their own thing. And more like a John True or some of those guys, same thing. It's like, it took us a little while, but boom, once we got it, man, it grew. And just to add some clarity for those watching. So essentially what Dean does is, has an artist come in for a day. They create, this content, and then he batches it out, and it's like 3 months, I believe, right? 90 days worth of content. Is that
Usually
what it
between
is?
2 and 3 months, depending on the quantity of songs we do on the day.
Got it. So basically the artist has all of their social media it's all chopped up. It's all, here's when to post it for the next three. And it's one day of work. It's, one fee, and it's amazing. And then that's obviously a great way for him to build, for you to build a relationship with those artists that they can come produce, or maybe they produce with you first, you do a song with them, and then move into a content. So yeah, it was a smart move to look at, hey, what does my local market need, and how can I use that as a catalyst? Because I think that working gave you the confidence for your production business, if I'm not wrong.
Absolutely. One feeds off the other one. But when you were getting back about staying in the actual game, so to speak, I probably wouldn't have come up with this idea or came across it if I pulled the pin in, let's say, the first 6 months of you and I working together. Because honestly, what I probably would have done is I would have gone back and tried to continue with the beat leasing. And I probably would have been in the same spot now, as I was, 6 months before we met each other. So staying in the game is a huge thing.
And honestly, the fact that, you've developed as a business person, it's not in sequence right now. We obviously want to continue this, but if you decide to get into the beat game later, like you'll have a way better shot at making that work, because just, kind of better at business now. So, cool. Why did you decide to, hire someone to help you, to come into a program like this? And then second piece is, what were your fears around doing that and making that decision?
So the main reason is understanding that you're not where you're at for a reason. So basically, the knowledge I have, the experience I have to do what I wanted to do, the realization that it's not enough to get where I want to go. And it makes perfect sense to find someone that has achieved the things that you're looking to achieve. Maybe not specifically what your vision is, but it's within that realm. And so they've already gone through the trials and tribulations of what you're going to be experiencing, but also to help you grow as a person to get there as well. And the second part of that, as far as fear around investing in yourself like this, look, I definitely had that fear, but I was at a point where, I could sort of retract back into myself even further. And in 5 years' time, probably be doing the same thing or even less. or I could pull the pin and gamble on myself, an educated gamble, and give it a go. There's no guarantee, because at the end of the day, it's all on me. And that's what it's really important for people to understand. Being in a program is invaluable, but to understand that it's always going to be on your own shoulders is a huge thing. And that was a big fear for me. Okay. And that's where also being in a program like this and having a mentor like yourself, they help you through those stages to develop more as a person to get where you want to go. So the money was a fear, yes, but if you want something, you got to pull the trigger and take a gamble on yourself. And to this point, it's paying off.
Yeah, man. I joke with some of you. 90% of my job is just keeping you here,
Yep.
and just making sure we get through it. Because I look at it, man, it's like, even though there's been some periods where, and not obviously with you, this has happened to plenty of people, of like, oh gosh, are we going to lose them? And the reason that I dig in, because I'm like, man, most people will never, like what you just said, put down money and bet on themselves and invest in a program like this. Like, and maybe some of it is just they don't like my particular program, but in general, that they won't invest in themselves. And I'm like, all of you guys here and gals have done that. So at one point, you wanted this to work because you did what 90% of other people aren't willing to do. So yeah, just keeping you in the game as you've experienced the thing. And what's great about it, man, is that you have to have the gift to give it, right? And this is the same shit I want you guys to be able to do with the artists that you work with and keep them in the game, because there's going to be times where they want to, definitely times where they're like, fuck this, I want to quit. It's hard, and you can be like, well, believe me, I know, and here's how we got through that. But you can't, it's theory if you tell them, but if you've actually experienced yourself and continue to work through it, what's brilliant about that is that you can pass that along to other people, man. And that's huge. I mean, that's how I'm here doing this job,
Yep. That's super
So
important. It's another thing that I wouldn't have expected to get from a program like this, is that side of value that you can also add to your clients, more so than just, here's a production of a good song, or here's some content about your music. To help them with their mindset a little bit as well is hugely valuable. It's something I wouldn't have been able to do or even understand about before being in something like this. So really, really, really valuable.
cool, man. Good. Last little question here. You've already actually kind of done this multiple times already, but if you had to sum it up, just a quick little advice to anyone who may be who was in your situation beforehand, trying to sell beats, couldn't do it, wants to explore a new model. What advice would you give them?
The advice is that you don't know what you don't know. It sounds like a bit of a cliche, but when you come into a program like this, your mind it's basically blown wide open. And the other thing is, and I'm sort of speaking about you in the third person here, Dan, you're not going to take someone on unless you believe they have, firstly, the skill set to do it in the beginning, right? So that in itself can give someone the confidence who may not be still sure, well, do I actually have the skill set to do this? You're not going to take someone on who doesn't have that initial part of the process in place. But what someone will learn is how to take that skill set and, if needed, flip their mindset to understand, to create it into more of a business mindset, to build something almost on the shoulders of someone has done it before, like yourself. And that's super invaluable. So that's why I simply recommend it, because you don't know what you don't know, and find the right people to help you get to those next stages that, where you're currently at, it's very difficult to move past that.
Same goes for me, which is why I have business coaches and mentors.
Yep.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks. I appreciate it, and I will let you get back to work.
Cheers, Dan.
Cheers.